Wake up.
When people think about Pythagoras, the well-known triangle theorem from school usually comes to mind. However, this is a superficial understanding of him. The true Pythagoras was much more than a mathematician. He was initiated into the Egyptian mysteries, served as a prophet of the soul, and mastered the unseen aspects of reality. Surprisingly, Pythagoras established a unique school, a sanctuary of silence, where students spent years in complete silence before receiving even basic instruction. The knowledge imparted in this school was not intended for the masses. It was considered potent, dangerous, and off-limits. This video aims to explore the concealed mysteries left by Pythagoras, the secrets excluded from standard education. These forbidden teachings delve into the nature of the soul, the significance of numbers, the harmony of the cosmos, and the concept of spiritual transmigration. Pythagoras' profound ability to listen was recognized long before he was primarily remembered for a mathematical theorem rarely used outside of academic settings. He believed that the entire universe was propelled by vibrations and that everything, without exception, is fundamentally sound. This sound is not what we perceive with our ears, but rather an invisible harmony that maintains the cosmos. Ancient accounts suggest that Pythagoras asserted that planets generate sounds as they move, with each celestial body emitting a distinct note based on its speed and path. These individual notes collectively formed what he termed the music of the spheres, a grand cosmic symphony. The reason we don't perceive this cosmic music, they explain, is because we have been immersed in it since our birth, much like a fish is unaware of the water surrounding it. To comprehend Pythagoras' perspective, we must reconsider our conventional understanding of numbers as inert and lifeless entities. He viewed numbers as active forces. For him, the number 1 represented the origin of all things. The number 2 symbolized duality and conflict, while 3 brought about harmony. 4 was associated with the organization of the physical world, and so on. Each number played a crucial role in maintaining the universe's equilibrium. They were not merely tools for counting, but rather the hidden mechanisms underlying reality. Pythagoras gained insight into this connection between number and sound through observing musical instruments. He observed that pleasing musical notes consistently followed precise mathematical ratios, such as 2-to-1 and 3-to-2. This led to a significant realization. These proportions not only governed music, but also organized nature itself. What sounded harmonious to the ear reflected a deeper underlying order present throughout the cosmos. This discovery positions Pythagoras as far more than just a mathematician. In essence, he was among the first to grasp that the universe possesses an inherent structure, with patterns existing beneath the surface of apparent chaos. Furthermore, these patterns are not limited to the celestial realm, but are also present within ourselves. Consequently, his teachings were not purely theoretical. He and his followers employed sound as a spiritual practice. They believed that specific melodies had the power to calm the mind, balance the body, and even facilitate healing. Before sleep, they used particular music to purify their thoughts, and upon waking, they used different music to align their spirit with the new day. Music served as medicine, prayer, and a form of inner discipline. Today, scientific understanding is beginning to align with these ancient ideas, with modern physics describing vibration as the fundamental basis of matter. Current research in cellular biology is examining the ways in which sound affects our cells. Additionally, therapies utilizing sound and specific healing frequencies are regaining popularity. However, Pythagoras explored these ideas over 2 millennia ago, a time when suggesting the universe possessed a soul was a risky proposition. His teachings on universal harmony extended beyond mere musical notes and sounds. They emphasized living in harmony with the entirety of existence, discovering the natural rhythms of life, breath, and thought, and aligning oneself with nature, others, and one's own inner being. This is why Pythagoras stressed the importance of balance. In his view, a good life was synonymous with a harmonious existence, and achieving harmony primarily involved listening, attentively listening to the world around us, to our own bodies, and to the silence that exists between words. He often said that the most profound knowledge is not conveyed through written texts, but through vibrations themselves. Perhaps this is why, even today, We use the phrase "that resonated with me" when something deeply affects us. Pythagoras envisioned the universe as a harp and ourselves as individual strings within it. When we are out of tune, we experience suffering. Conversely, when we vibrate at the correct frequency, everything flows smoothly. And in such moments, we might unknowingly become a subtle note within the eternal music of the cosmos. For Pythagoras, the physical body was not the ultimate destination, but rather a temporary stage in a larger journey. He believed that a person's true identity was not defined by their physical form, name, or personal history, but resided within their soul. He considered the soul to be immortal, undergoing continuous cycles of birth, death, and rebirth in various life forms. This concept is known as metempsychosis, or more commonly, reincarnation. However, Pythagoras' understanding of the soul was more nuanced. He believed that the soul not only survived death, but also retained impressions from past lives. It moved like a flame passing from one container to another with each existence, while still preserving something of its original essence. Furthermore, the quality of one's subsequent life was determined by how one lived the present life. This perspective did not originate in isolation. Pythagoras spent years studying in Egypt, where priests taught that humans were composed of multiple components: a physical body, vital energy, mind, spirit, and shadow, with each part following a different path after death. He was also influenced by the Orphic mysteries of Greece, which viewed the soul as a temporary guest within a limiting physical body. Consequently, Pythagoras described the body as a prison, not in a purely negative sense, but as something that requires discipline and offers opportunities for learning, refinement, and transformation, akin to a laboratory where the soul is tested, shaped, and tempered. The Pythagoreans believed that the soul needed to be purified to break free from the cycle of rebirth. This purification was not achieved through public rituals, but through daily practices emphasizing silence, self-control, and self-knowledge. These practices included a nonviolent diet, orderly thinking, careful selection of words, and music that uplifted the spirit. All of these elements formed what we might today call inner alchemy. For Pythagoras, true alchemy was not about transmuting base metals into gold, but about transforming ignorance into wisdom. It involved not altering external matter, but transmuting the soul from within. And this purification of the soul occurred when one freed oneself from ego, impulsive behavior, and unconscious repetition. Metempsychosis also served as a lesson in humility. Pythagoras believed that one could be a king in one life and a servant in the next, a philosopher in the present and an animal in the future. Pythagoras believed that the soul learns through all forms of existence, with every living creature serving as a vessel for consciousness. This understanding was the basis for his and his disciples' abstention from eating meat, a practice rooted in compassion rather than dietary concerns. While this viewpoint finds resonance in Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism today, it was considered revolutionary in ancient Greece. Even the assertion that the soul survived the death of the body was considered bold. To suggest that it could return in the form of a fish or a tree was almost seen as heresy. Nevertheless, Pythagoras insisted that the purpose of life transcends mere existence. It lies in liberating oneself from ignorance, the automatic cycle of desires, and unconscious repetitive behaviors. This liberation, he believed, occurs when the soul remembers its true nature. Pythagoras referred to this process as anamnesis, the recollection of essence, suggesting that the soul possessed innate knowledge from the beginning that was forgotten at birth. Philosophy, music, silence, and numbers were all tools to aid this remembering. Ultimately, Pythagoras was not primarily teaching mathematics but offering a guide, a path for individuals to cease being prisoners of their physical bodies and instead become pilgrims of the soul. Pythagoras did not establish a conventional school, but rather a spiritual community, a kind of temple disguised as a philosophical academy. Within this community, knowledge was conveyed not only through spoken words, but also through gestures, periods of silence, and a specific way of life. This community arose in the city of Croton in southern Italy, where he gathered disciples from across the Greek world, encompassing men and women, young and old, all willing to leave behind ordinary life in their pursuit of harmony. However, this harmony was not easily attained. To gain acceptance into the Pythagorean school, a candidate had to undergo a demanding selection process. The initial stage involved a period of silence lasting weeks, months, or even years, during which their sole task was to listen. This was because Pythagoras taught that the ability to listen attentively precedes the ability to speak wisely. Silence was more than just a test, it was a ritual. It served as a means to quiet the mind, become aware of one's internal thoughts, recognize the abundance of unnecessary words we speak, and prepare both the body and soul for a higher purpose. Only after this period of silence would a disciple receive the initial teachings, and even then, knowledge was imparted gradually. Understanding was granted in stages, tailored to each individual's inner maturity. Those who successfully navigated this initial phase were admitted to the inner circle of the order. From that point onward, their lives underwent a significant transformation. They adhered to strict schedules for waking and sleeping, consumed simple and regulated food, and dedicated themselves to the study of mathematics, music, astronomy, and meditation. They lived within a community structure, yet maintained a profound sense of individual spirituality. It resembled a monastery without a specific religious doctrine. While there were practices, they were not mere displays, but rather exercises in cultivating awareness. For instance, the contemplation of the pentagram, a symbol held sacred by the order, was a regular practice. Oaths taken also held significant importance. One of the most revered oaths was sworn upon the Tetractys, a triangular arrangement of the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, which together sum to 10, a number representing totality for the Pythagoreans. This symbol was not merely geometric, but also deeply spiritual. It represented the hidden structure of the universe, and to swear upon it signified a commitment to the pursuit of truth in every aspect of life. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Pythagorean order was its aim to cultivate well-rounded individuals, not just impart knowledge. Pythagoras believed that knowledge devoid of ethics was without value. Consequently, every member of the order underwent training to develop virtues such as justice, temperance, courage, and moderation. The Pythagoreans were not seeking intellectually gifted individuals, but rather souls that were in harmony. Over time, members of this school began to exert influence on the political landscape of Croton and neighboring cities, with many becoming leaders, advisors, and reformers. However, this influence was not universally welcome. The Pythagoreans started to be perceived as a clandestine group manipulating politics from behind the scenes. In a world where power is often pursued through ambition, a school founded on virtue and wisdom soon became a perceived threat. As tensions escalated, the order came under attack. Their temple was burned and some members were killed. Pythagoras himself was forced to flee, and with him, many of the school's secrets were lost. Nevertheless, their impact endured. The surviving knowledge reached us in fragmented forms, brief sayings, accounts from disciples, and symbols etched in stone, as if the order had been dismantled externally but remained alive internally. This enduring essence resided in the minds and hearts of those who had experienced the power of silence and understood its significance. In today's world, the existence of such a school might seem peculiar. However, perhaps the truly strange thing is that our current society no longer values silence, attentive listening, discipline, and inner transformation. Within the order of Croton, philosophy was not merely a theoretical concept. It was a lived practice that shaped every aspect of life, from sleep patterns and dietary habits to one's relationship with time. This imbued even the simplest actions with a sense of aligning oneself with the cosmos. Pythagoras viewed numbers in a unique way. For him, they were not simply symbols for counting or solving practical problems, but held a much deeper significance. He considered them to be living entities, fundamental principles underlying reality. Each number, each geometric shape, each proportion revealed insights into the workings of both the cosmos and the soul. This is why he famously stated that everything is number, and this statement was not a mere figure of speech. He intended it to convey a meaning that extends beyond the realm of conventional mathematics even today. For Pythagoras, numbers constituted the invisible framework upon which all of existence was built. from music and planets to the human body and even our thoughts. Consider the work of an architect. To design a building, they require measurements, angles, and symmetry. However, Pythagoras went a step further, believing that the universe itself was designed based on precise mathematical proportions. In other words, relationship preceded matter and number preceded form. This was not just a philosophical belief. Pythagoras and his disciples engaged in rigorous investigation to understand it. They studied the proportions of the human body, sacred geometric forms, and the orbits of celestial bodies, seeking underlying patterns. Whenever they discovered harmony, a proportion that recurred in nature, art, and music, they interpreted it as a message from the universal order. Geometry held sacred significance because it provided a means to perceive the invisible through the visible. A spiral, a triangle, a circle, each geometric figure embodied a specific teaching. For the Pythagoreans, studying these shapes was akin to engaging in a dialogue with the divine. The most revered symbol among them was the tetractys, a triangle formed by the sum of the first four numbers, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. This number 10 was not simply a numerical value, but represented the synthesis of all things. The point, 1, the line, 2, the plane, 3, and the volume, 4. They believed that everything in existence could be described through these four fundamental dimensions, and together they revealed the entirety of reality. Disciples would swear upon the tetractys as if it were a sacred text. In a sense it was, because it embodied the idea that reality is structured by patterns, that nothing is random, and that there is an underlying intelligence behind creation. This vision did not disappear with Pythagoras. It profoundly influenced the entire Western esoteric tradition. For example, the Kabbalists viewed numbers as a bridge connecting God and the world, and alchemists based their experiments on geometric proportions. Even in contemporary times, the architecture of temples, churches, and other sacred structures reflects remnants of this divine mathematical understanding. Modern science is also beginning to rediscover these concepts in new forms. Quantum physics demonstrates that particles behave in mathematically predictable ways, and biology reveals proportional patterns within DNA. The creation of digital art relies on fractals, which are infinite geometric repetitions. All of this seems to point back to the same conclusion reached by Pythagoras 2,500 years ago. There is an underlying code governing everything. However, this code is not purely technical. It also possesses aesthetic and spiritual dimensions, suggesting that the universe is not merely a mechanical entity, but a conscious work of art in the process of creation. This creation, though built upon mathematical equations, resonates deeply with the human heart. When one begins to recognize these patterns in the sky, in music, and in everyday actions, a transformation occurs. Life begins to be lived with greater presence, reverence, and an awareness of underlying order, even amidst apparent chaos. This is the essence of what Pythagoras sought to impart. Not just formulas for rote memorization, but a way of seeing that awakens one's perception. The information shared here is not presented as a mere theory, but as an invitation. Pythagoras did not desire worship, but understanding. And to truly understand him requires more than just intellectual reasoning. It necessitates inner stillness. We inhabit a world characterized by constant noise. However, as Pythagoras himself stated, true knowledge resides in the sound that is not audibly heard, in the number that vibrates without being written down, and in the dynamic interplay between body, soul, and spirit symbolized by the triangle. The forbidden teachings of Pythagoras were not eradicated, but rather concealed within the proportions of temples, the rhythm of our breath, and the lingering sound of a distant bell. If these hidden teachings of Pythagoras resonated with you and sparked a new way of seeing the world, please help us share this profound wisdom. By spreading this message, you contribute to keeping these ancient ideas alive. If you found this lesson insightful, give it a like, subscribe to our channel for more explorations into forgotten knowledge, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next journey of discovery. Your support helps our channel grow and allows us to bring more of these vital lessons to light.